and welcome to Tiny Changes Big Podcast. I'm your host, B. Charlotte. This podcast is all about bringing you real talk and insights from the music industry, with conversations from those who actively live it. We will cover less discussed topics like finance, identity, public perception, and how attempting to survive this unregulated industry impacts our mental health. Together, we'll explore the rhythms of mental health, the highs, the lows, and the steady heartbeat in between, because your well-being is the foundation of your creativity. So come on in, everyone's welcome.
Before we jump in, a note on our content. This podcast will discuss and explore some difficult subject areas. We want to make sure you're aware of what's coming ahead, so you can decide if you're in a good place to listen and make a healthy decision on how and if you want to consume this podcast content. This episode includes discussions of misogyny, sexual harassment in the industry, safety concerns in music spaces, online abuse, racism, appearance pressure, and the associated mental health challenges of those, and the occasional use of strong language. We want to encourage you to think about how you look after yourself during and after the episode, and listener discretion is advised. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and the host and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not constitute professional mental health, legal, or financial advice. So now you know what's ahead. We hope you join us and enjoy this episode.
Today, we're talking about being a woman in the music industry. And I'm not just talking about the challenges, but the reality of working in a space that can often feel male-dominated, where women face unique pressures, risks, and expectations that male artists simply don't. This is a conversation about resilience, creativity, and the power of sharing our stories. I'm joined by three credible artists who are navigating this landscape every single day. Have Alice Johnson, singer and guitarist from Swim School, EYVE, singer, songwriter and rapper, and Lucky Babe, DJ, producer and cultural organiser. Thank you all so much for being here and for being willing to have this conversation with me today. We're going to get right into it, I guess. Let's start with the truth of it, really. The music industry can, as we know, often feel like a very male-dominated space. And whether that's, on stage, off stage, in day-to-day life, it can be intimidating to often be the only woman in the room. What has that reality been like for you, if you'd feel sort of comfortable sharing that with us?
So as a DJ that is very male dominated, I've been DJing since 2017, and in the past few years there's definitely been more women DJing. I think a lot of people were like doing it in lockdown and stuff, and now there's a lot of new DJs, but before then it was really quite lonely, just because of the experiences of like certain things that like my male DJ friends wouldn't experience, like the classic like misogyny, like not being taken seriously, to like people coming up asking requests and like putting their like hand on your back and being a bit creepy, to just like straight up creepiness as well. I've found as well there's a lot less freedom to play what you want. You have to kind of put yourself in a box quite a lot, like, oh, I play this genre, I play that genre. And because I play so many different genres, that's kind of like, oh, like, you're not like a serious DJ. But with some gigs I've had with where there's been like tech issues, and I've known how to fix them, but like it's been like the guy who works in the bar is just coming and fiddling stuff and like doing the opposite of fix it, and I'm trying to be like, okay, you just gotta do this, you just gotta like turn it up from like the main speaker and then that'll be fine. And then he's like moving the fader like, oh, maybe this will make it sound better.
Part of it, isn't it, like you say, be taken seriously, and that's so important and can really be so detrimental to your confidence. I know that yourselves and EYVE performed together quite a few times and have a track together, is that right, as well? And so I guess EYVE, have you seen that similarly to like what was he saying?
Yes, like for me personally, it's being in the studio and realizing that before I met Lucy, I had not worked with a female producer before. So like, yeah, that is insane because I've done so many tracks. I've been to so many different courses, like learning about the music industry and all of that. And there is just the lack of female representation it's kind of alarming. And every time I speak to people that want to get into it, they mention things like, oh, I don't even know where to get access. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who's going to teach me, because it's hard as an artist to learn about production or the music industry as a woman. Yeah, particularly in production, not having access to that, because like I understand some women have children as well, so yeah, that they have to worry about childcare and all of that. Like it's all the things that just keep adding up.
Yeah.
But I don't think the misogyny is changing as long as the patriarchy is still there. It's going to be, and if people are not talking about it, it's going to continue to be so much like of a gap of unfairness in the music industry.
Totally. I think as well, like it's also like positive steps have been made, but also we're still nowhere near it. Like what you say, you're still like a long way to go. And Alice, in your band swim school, you are the only woman in the band, and as well, did you notice very early on the difference between how you and your male counterparts were being treated?
Definitely. I think from the get-go of doing music, I studied music at college, and I was the only girl in the guitar group in the first year. And I was sat there surrounded by these 10 guys in like metal t-shirts and metal like guitars, like flying V's and that. And I was sat there in my little acoustic, and I was just like, I remember thinking on that first day of college, I'm not going to last here and I'm going to quit tonight. But then the guy on my right, Lewis, who's my guitarist to this day, he spoke away to me, and then we became best mates. But even in college, there was a massive lack of like female representation. Nearly, I think like 90% of the lecturers were all male as well. So in a weird way, you were kind of used to it. And then when I started gigging for the first time, it was always male lineups and male sound engineers and male crew. And it's always been that way. And which doesn't make it okay. But I think it is, if I was in a band with girls, I think we would have felt it a lot more. But the boys in my band, they'd been in bands, loads of bands before they'd been in a band with me. And I was the first like women who'd been in a band with. And even they noticed the difference. They came to me and they're like, we can see the difference on how like you're treated to us. And it is that thing, you smashed it. You said you don't get taken seriously, and that's exactly what it is. It's like they almost look at you thinking that you're the girlfriend of the band rather than the like lead singer. I've spoke about it very publicly, but I've always had so much trouble with sound engineers. And we're kind of like a guitar like heavy band with a female vocal, which a lot of venues and microphones aren't actually equipped for like the higher vocal of a woman. And when you turn up to these venues and the engineers don't know what they're doing and they think, well, I can't push her vocal anymore, and then they pull you up and say you need to sing louder. Like, I've always been very insecure about my vocals as a like vocalist, because from day dot I've always been told to project more, and I've had these men telling me how to sing, and I'm like, I think it really kind of cracked one time. I think it was after festival season of 2021. Every single gig we played, it was just this engineer would come up to me when I was alone, may I add. It's not when I'm with the boys, it was always when I was by myself. And they'd come up and be like, just either say you're not a good singer or you're not strong enough, blah, blah, blah. And I remember getting back to the hotel room, and we played 2,000 Trees down south somewhere. Got back to the hotel room, and I sat there and I said to the boys, when we get home, I want to write a song, like an angry song, where I'm just on the microphone about like misogyny in music industry. And then we wrote Delirious, and it was the quickest song I've ever written in my life. Like the lyrics just like poured out in me. And that song is a song where when we play it live now, I put my guitar down and it is just me. I usually get into the mosh pit and it is about sound engineers. But we're very fortunate now, we're in a position where we do have our own sound engineer that comes with us, so that's now stopped. Because if he ever told me to sing louder, I'd tell him where to go. But I think from the second I step foot in my first venue as a musician, you're just surrounded by it, and you just don't feel like you're getting taken seriously, or you feel like I've last thought, or it's, I don't know. And I always remember I used to always make the boys go into the venue first. I was never the first one to step foot in it. I'd always be like, you guys go in first, suss it out, and then I'll come in. Not in terms of me being a diva, just in the terms of I know that we'll be taken more seriously. The boys are at the front of it. But I listened to a podcast that Ellie Rezo from Lovalis done recently, maybe not recently, maybe a few years ago now, and she said that, and I was like, I do that. That's something I do. And then she kind of talked about how wrong it was, and I was like, I'm the front woman of the band that's headlining this venue. Like, why am I the last one to walk in? So then I just kind of threw that out the window, and I would go up to everybody and and when I first meet them, shake their hand, be like, I'm the lead singer. My name's Alice. Like, what do you do? And it's not in terms of you want to be intimidating. It's more just to be like, we know where we stand. We know where we stand. And you're not going to patronise me and make me feel like I shouldn't be here because this venue sold out. They bought tickets to come and see us, and I'm not letting some old man behind the sound desk. I'm not slitting old men. I'm just saying, from my experiences alone, it's the younger guys that are the nicer ones, and they're more understanding, and it's the older white men that are the absolute arseholes. I think because, I'm not defending them, I think because they probably worked for how many of years, and it has always been male musicians that they've worked with, and I think maybe a woman coming in is a wee bit intimidating, a wee bit but I do want to say the nicest managers we've ever had are the younger ones, I think, because they're more, inclusive and they're not misogynistic. But yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a tough industry, but I think it really does make you who you are, and I couldn't be prouder of that, really.
Exactly. I think it's like, it's not, nobody should have to face those circumstances or feel those worries or be just afraid to do your job, really, ultimately, because of any reasonings, really. And I think it's just, as we're sort of saying, there's definitely positive steps in the right direction, but also there's still a really long way to go as well. And I guess it's as well, it's even when you're a younger artist as well, it can be even more intimidating. And like, if you're a solo artist as well, you're turning up to venues by yourself, or you're turning up to anything by yourself, in a sense, you really, like, when you say you just have no idea what to expect sometimes.
I did a course with Saffron I think they're based in Bristol. It's like down south when I was living in London, and it was to get more women and non-binary people into sound engineering. And it was like the pilot year that I did it. And I think that's a really great thing, to get more women and non-binary people into sound engineering. And we had a day where it was like over a week, and we had a day where we went to, I think it was Safer Sounds was the company that did our training, like in the warehouse. And one of the main guys there was saying how it's like actually really like kind of embarrassing how non-diverse sound engineering is as an industry, which is why like he wanted to work with Saffron to make this happen.
Like what you were saying, Eve, about being from multiple studios and working with those people and not seeing another absolving some guys, and that's for years and years and years would be the case. I'd do when I was signed to Sony, they'd send me off to random places in the middle of nowhere. It was predominantly, I would ask, I really want to work with more women, hundreds and hundreds of Sony sections, and it was pretty much all guys, to be honest. And it was just, I had some good experiences, wrote some good songs, of course, but then when I finally got to work with some other women, it was just a totally different experience. Or even just the relatability factor, when you're pouring your heart out to write a song or whatever that is you're doing, you kind of need to feel that comfortability just as you would performing on the stage as well. And I think, for me, I'd had enough of that. That was just out of necessity and just out of like, no, I'm sick of it. Like, we just need it. And there's so many incredible artists, and we've had people from Scotland, England, Germany, Ireland coming and stuff, but there's so many incredible artists in Scotland that just aren't getting the opportunities.
I think it is quite intimidating to go into a studio or to approach producers, like I have in the past, but I think over the past few years before I started working with EYVE and Up to Standard, I was really like hesitant to approach anyone to work with, which was actually what led to me learning to produce myself, because I didn't want to be like alone in a room with a man who I didn't know, like regardless of like talent level, because that doesn't mean they can be a safe person. And yeah, it was like, it really put a barrier into me kind of moving forward into like making my own music and getting my own tracks finished, until like you invite me to go to the studio, and I was like, okay, well, he's going to be there, so that's fine.
I think that's probably a thing that a lot of people don't think about, is it really, unless you've been in that position. And like what you were saying there, I guess sort of discuss it beyond just being undermined. There is the reality of harassment, sexual harassment, physical safety, like you mentioned, and women in the industry, we can often carry an extra mental load. Like you're saying, it's been a barrier to moving forward and thinking about our safety in ways that male artists don't have to, whether it's inappropriate comments from audience members, unwanted intention, just the constant awareness of your vulnerability. How I know Alice have spoken publicly before about your very first gig, oh God, and experiencing sexism and harassment in that way, and it was brilliant, the article that you were talking about that in, and the fact that you were able to get back up there and keep going.
Yeah, so basically what happened, I think it was our first ever swim school gig. We'd done one gig before it. It was at the Wee Red Bar in Edinburgh, but we did it under like another name because it was like a student night, and we were just like, it was my first time singing. Then we did a gig supporting Indigo Velvet in Glasgow, and this was my first time in like a proper venue and getting a sound check, and I was really excited, and I was also really nervous. And it was quite a busy night, and took to stage, and I was absolutely bricking it. Like, to put it lightly, I was absolutely shitting myself. And I walked to the front, and I was so nervous I couldn't look up. I just had my head down, and I was tuning my guitar. And as I was tuning my guitar, this guy came, like, kind of barged his way to the front of the stage, and there was no barrier, just like barged his way to the front, and he just kind of like waved to get my attention. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh God, something's gone wrong. Like, the power's gone down, the amps, like, something's happened. So I kind of like bent down, like, with my guitar in hand, and I was like, is everything okay? And he was just like, just make sure your G-string is tight enough for me, love. And just laughed in my face. And I was just like, but I was so frozen. I was just like, do you know when like you're in those like positions where someone says something like that to you?
Yeah, you don't react until I do.
And you think of all the things you could have said back. But
you're on stage as well, and you're stage, first proper guy.
Exactly.
As well as all of that.
It was honestly like someone had just like punched me in the throat. And I was just like, oh my God. So I got back up. Then Lewis, my guitarist, he came over and he was like, what did he say? I was like, doesn't matter. And being fucking typical women, you don't want to make a scene because you're going to be too sensitive, not this. So I was like, doesn't matter. He was like, no, tell me. I was like, doesn't matter. And then throughout the whole gig, so I started singing, and throughout the whole gig, just this guy at the front was just heckling me like the whole time. But I was just like, they're like, no, I'm not gonna let this guy ruin it. And then we had like quite an emotional song, and I remember just getting so like, just hold it together, it's fine. And then managed to get through a half an hour set of this guy just like, no one did anything about him, just shouted at me. And then I came off stage, and the band who were supporting, they came up, and he was just like, oh, that was amazing. And I just burst into tears because I was like holding it in the whole time. And it was actually Jason and Billy from Indigo Velvet, and Billy plays in Swim School now.
Yeah.
They were like, what happened? So I told them, the lovely lads that they are, they got Lewis, my guitarist, and are like, we're going to go find this guy and kick him out. That guy is now barred from the venue, which is good. So something got done about it. But it was just that feeling of like, you're being like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the first time I've walked on the stage, I've been sexualized, and make sure your G-string is tight enough for me, love. But I think the worst part throughout all of it is watching his mates just stand there and like let him have it. Like, I was just like, if that was my friend saying or doing that, I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? And the fact it was just constant shouting. But I will say, I feel lucky for that guy, because if that was me now, I would have absolutely ripped him to part, because I feel like before I thought being on stage, you were so vulnerable, and you're such an isolated thing up there. And I think back in the day, I felt I didn't have any power. But actually, when you change that mindset, and you're like, no, this is my show. You're here to see me, and I'm going to put you in a place. Like, we played a festival down south in Portsmouth the other week, and it was a group of drunk lads just talking throughout the set, and even when I was on to the audience, I could hear him. So I just stopped talking, and I went, "Oh, you in the cap?" I was like, "Just go and shut the fuck up!" And everyone started cheering. I was like, "No one wants to hear you talking. And the fact that like we had lots of fans at the front that just kept turning around looking at him. He was being so loud and thingy. But now I feel like I have the confidence in myself to be like, you're at my show, you're watching me. I'm not, you're not here. Like, I don't know, it's so hard to say, like, say this and not sound like a diva, but it's my show. And I'm the one performing. And just be like, shut up. But I do think now more than ever, I'm a lot more confident. And maybe those things that had happened to me before hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am now. But at the same time, like, nobody of any age, any gender, any sex, nothing, nobody should have to feel that way that I felt on stage. And my dad was absolutely human. I didn't tell him because he was at the gig and he would have probably dealt with the guy pretty well. But no, it's just, that was like, from the fact that it happened from the start, in the saddest way possible, it kind of means that every gig that something doesn't happen is kind of like a relief. But how sad is that? Because the boys don't have to think of it. And another one we played, quite a big festival called Boardmasters in Cornwall, and the sound engineer was being a bit of an arsehole to me, and it was just back and forth, and we got a line check, not a sound check, and it was a very long day, and it was very hot, and I'm Scottish, so I can't handle the heat. And I remember like the amps had gone down, I don't know, in my book of strings. It was a very, very stressful environment, and as I'm talking to the audience, this guy at the front row just shouts, "Give me your number," and I'm just like, it just plays on the fact that you're not taken seriously as a woman. And it's like, it just feels you're just being sexualized and put down to just being an object rather than like being an actual performer.
Yeah.
And none of the boys have ever experienced it. And none of the boys have ever had somebody make comments that make them feel uncomfortable. And it's really hard to speak to them about it. But they're obviously, the boys in my band are incredible. Like, they would never, ever let anybody hurt me or say anything bad to me. And let them get away with it. But it's just horrible that like you're constantly on edge. Even when you're performing, you're constantly on edge because you're like, something could be said to me in the next 5 minutes. But again, I'm a lot better at handling it now than I was before. That guy would have been absolute. I think I would have dragged him up on stage and be like, go tell everyone what you just said to me. But I think you're just being a woman in general, you're programmed not to make a scene, and you're programmed to just keep the peace when actually you should be the ones speaking up. But I do that now.
Being able to speak up, or like you say, draw attention to things, then it becomes like, oh, you're the problem, and actually they focus on you.
As well as like intersectionality of being like a black woman as well, especially as like a black queer woman. Yeah. There's an extra pressure to not be seen as like difficult, because people can be quicker to see as like angry or difficult or like sassy, I guess. So there is an extra pressure to sometimes, even if like delivering feedback in a calm, composed, like gentle parenting sort of way, you will still be seen as being difficult or angry. I think you've had people say that before. Yeah.
I had people say that I was difficult because I wanted my song to sound the way I wanted to sound. They just could not like take that in. They're like, well, I did this, I did that. I'm like, but still, we're supposed to be working together as a team. It's not about what you do. It's like, I'm the artist. I'm coming here with this piece of music because I know that you're going to help me to make it sound better, and you're going to be able to like listen. If I was a producer, that's what I would do. Because okay, this artist wants this. This is all I want to do. But instead of like working with me, I was labeled as difficult, and that was at the beginning of my music career. My gap was like maybe like 5 months into that, so that discouraged me like a lot. It took me a long time to finally find people that I can actually work with, and I tried to search for women that are doing music, but every time that I would find someone, it would be someone that's already doing something big, so it would be expensive to try and work with that as well, which is great, good for them. After that, I met some people from Up to Standards. Like, it's all men there that run everything, but I know how it is. So like getting comfortable and like getting to like work with a male producer there and opening up about my queerness, like that's the part that's been quite hard, because I've not been able to like open up enough like in the studio, because I don't know, I just feel like it's not the same. It would be different if it was a woman, even a straight woman. Yeah. I wouldn't, because there is just some parts that are hard to reach, but how do I like bring them out when it's always men in the studio? So
you want to feel comfortable, supported, and especially when it's like what you say, being in the studio, being on stage is such a vulnerable position to be in. And if you're in that studio setting by yourself with a stranger, you're like, it's so hard, isn't it, to then just go, right, perform and do your best job, and then you've got to put everything in, and that's got to be it, done and dusted.
When we were like kind of in like the mixing point of like miniskirt, I was still like, I want to actually just change that to, and I was like, every time I was like saying it, I was like, I'm sorry, and so I was just like, you don't need to apologize, like stop apologizing, I'm just gonna do it.
There's so much to think of and so much to consider, and obviously the mental load of it all. And I think a lot of times people don't take into making music looks fun, or you can be playing songs that are dead upbeat and it's a tune that people can dance to or move to, but the soul of it, where it's came from, can be as traumatic and can be at the hardest times of your life. And there isn't really much, I guess, consideration, like you say, around that. And I think as well, similar, I guess it kind of leads on to the idea of like our presentation pressures, how we have different expectations of how we have to present ourselves, really, in terms of, we were talking about before about stage outfits, even the cost of that. That's one thing, but I guess can be similar for guys as well, of course. But there is this, we're judged and held to a different standard. We are really judged to different standards, and recently there's been a lot online in particular towards Lola Young and how she dresses and expresses herself, and a lot of times as well, I guess, online comments about things would be about our appearance rather than the music.
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes as well, maybe you can be judged by your appearance in whatever sense that is before anybody even listens to anything, and they can make, I guess, a comment on it. How do you manage the pressure on appearances?
I don't care. Like, I finally reached a point where I don't care. I wear something that I know I look good and sexy in when I go on stage. Unless, like, I'm performing, like, a gig where there are kids, of course, I'm going to be just a perfect in it, yeah. But now, I've reached a point where I'm like, I am so comfortable with my style on stage. Like, no matter what anyone says, I don't care. I just want to have look. Like, I just want to not have, like, that care for as long as possible. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to last. Like, things changed in life.
I've kind of similarly, like, reframed it for myself. Like, I feel like it's a part of the process is, like, the getting ready, like, doing my makeup, doing my hair. I'll usually kind of, like, listen to the music or, like, go through my set while I'm doing my makeup. And it's, like, and it's almost, like, because I'm quite an anxious person, to get into, like, instead of being Lucy Babe, I'll be Lucky Babe. So it's like, okay, and it's like almost like putting on a costume to perform rather than, and then whatever's like happened that day or whatever, I can just like leave behind, do the gig, and then like take off.
Yeah, like, no, totally. I get that as well. Like, I don't know, and if you've similarly asked in that, like what Lucy's saying about, you've got your off-stage personality persona, and then your on-stage one as well, and sometimes they can be the same, and you want to have as much authenticity, I guess, as possible, but then you do need a wee bit of armour sometimes. I feel like, and sometimes for me that can be in what I'm wearing or what I'm doing in that sense.
As if I used to feel very insecure when I turned to a venue and like I wouldn't have my makeup on yet, and I'd be like, but then that's just being a woman in general, where if you feel like when sometimes you're not done up and you're having like a bad skin day or bad hair day, and then you turn up to a venue and you already know that the sound engineer is probably looking down on you, and like, but if you, I don't know, it's that stupid program thing in our heads where it's like, if we're more beautiful, we're more taken seriously. But I've very quick, like you guys say, like change your mindset and be like, that does not matter at all.
I've reached a point where I want to stop paying someone to do all of like my socials and stuff, because I hate like looking at myself like over and over again for like hours and hours, and then I love listening to myself. Like, I'm a musician, like that's like my instrument, but that whole comparison as well, it just makes it so much harder. Not everyone is mentally capable to be able to like hold that kind of pressure, you know, for them. Some people love it, you know, but as an artist, I feel like it really does suck, but sometimes there are like certain gigs that I've gone to where I didn't like put on makeup or like a dress and all of that, and I could see like the people were not really like paying like that much attention unless I had like a song that had like a like big vocal thing going on. But I love fashion as well, so it's okay. Like I don't mind doing that. But I can only imagine for artists that don't love like wearing all kinds of outfits and all that, and the pressure that they have to face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, looks are. I feel like we're on the edge of social media as well, where looks are more important than the music. Yeah, that does suck. And I don't know if it's going to change. I just feel like it's just heading into the AI perfection. It's how you're supposed to be looking like. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon.
A couple of months ago, I was flyering for a Gully Gully event, which is a night that I co-run. And I was handing out the flyer, and I handed out this guy, and I was like, "Oh, come to this," and he was like, looked at it and he was like, "Oh, Lucky Babe," and I was like, "That's me," and he was like, "Oh my god, that's you," and he'd like seen my set at a festival, but I think this mob machine was crazy, so he couldn't actually see me, but he'd like was interested because of the music, which was like the biggest compliment ever, because I was like, that's what I'm doing, is the music. So that was what, yeah,
that's really cool, isn't it? And sometimes I don't know if, since I do wish that, especially with like what you're saying about social media and stuff, it just be just want to put the tunes out, and if you like it or not, okay, it doesn't really matter. But instead of all the other, I guess, stuff that comes with it, and there is a pressure to maintain your online presence as well. Really, it's really hard to.
I think people are also getting way too comfortable with what they could say to other people. Because like when you were talking about how the guy was shouting at you on stage, I was like, I have never like heard or like experienced something like that. But like on social media, yeah. So I was like,
people hiding behind you, so. Or sometimes even not. Or, mentioned this on another episode. People sometimes not even hiding behind a fake profile. They're just themselves, mean and brutally horrible.
It really makes me feel sick when it happens, and it makes me want to like make my account private, and like it's really, really horrible, especially when it's like a private account, or like not a private account, or one with like no followers, or like no photos and no photos, and you're just like, who is this? You're like, how did you find me? How, like, wow, how weird are you? Like, am I safe? Like,
and it's it's like, you're right, and it's like a thing that maybe has spoken about enough as well. I've thought about enough is that and a horrible comment is one thing, but then you have that as somebody that's, you don't know who it is, and you have that fear, and they come to you as well. Like, I had it myself, the people repeatedly turning up at gigs who make you feel uncomfortable. It's really, really hard, because they bought a ticket, or they're in there, they've supported you, but at the same time, you don't want them anywhere near you. Yeah. And it can be a really difficult thing, I guess, to navigate.
It's hard. I think the line between being a fan and being a friend is sometimes really blurred because of online and like interacting and whatnot, and we're quite good at it in the sense of like we're not overly like responsive to every single thing, but you do get the odd comments and the odd, like, I never check my Instagram requests anymore because they're just the absolute like disgusting stuff I've had in there, and even on the like swim school account, the Instagram account, it's just sometimes DMs just full of these like vulgar, just inappropriate comments, and then but every time you read one or see one, it always just brings you back to being on that stage for the first time and just being like objectified.
Like, there's so much to be in this industry, and being able to be who you want to be. We're kind of now, in a way, feels like there is a bit of a new era of other artists, and it's like Chaperone and Wet Loud really challenging how women are meant to be seen and being unapologetically themselves, which is what I'm spoken about as well, taking up space and challenging expectations, challenging opinions, or just downright rude people. But do you feel like, have you felt that sort of shift in your own experiences, or do you think we're still quite fully off?
I think one thing that caught my attention recently was the absolute uproar that Rianne from, I think that's her name, from Wet Leg, her hairy armpits caused online. And it was like everyone just kicked off about it. All these men in the comments being like, "That's disgusting." I remember seeing it, but what I love, and I think especially this new like Wet Legs, like they've come back, and they said they were cottagecore before, but now it's like completely different, and Rianne's really kind of delved into her style, and now she's bleached her eyebrows and she's got like dyed hair, and I think it was, I could be wrong, but it was something to do with, it was like them like versus Oasis to get #1, and then she like posted a photo of like her armpit hair, and then all the men just started kicking off like, "This is disgusting," and it was just like, it's hair. But again, that's another thing, it's like you see it all the time. It's these women or like certain musicians who are so like unapologetically themselves. If they don't fit into this like certain bracket where it's like they have to be like a certain way, look a certain way, like be like this, that. If they don't fit into that, they're instantly like targeted on social media and being like, I just couldn't believe that absolute uproar that her armpit hair caused. And I'm like, it's just, and then also like her bleaching her eyebrows also, I'm just like, wow. But I think she really delved into it and made it her own, and wasn't like, she wasn't upset about the hate she was getting. She kind of like thrived off of it. And then you got like Chaperone as well, who I think is absolutely, like I absolutely love her stage outfits, and I wish I could afford to have a wardrobe like that. I really, really, really do. But again, she's very vocal about being queer, and like she's just like, I just love seeing people in this industry who aren't a white male just being themselves and just being like, I don't give a shit about what any of you think, I'm going to be myself. And then I think that's when they get the fan base that just love them for their music and their art, and they're not going to have, the only place to get hate is on the comments on Instagram and all this, and
I don't want to be your fan anyway. And so we've talked about the challenges, and they're very, very real, but you're all still here, still making music, still building new careers. And what's actually helped you navigate these obstacles, if there's any sort of strategies or things in particular that have felt like you've helped you navigate this industry, and or what advice could you give to young people, young ones just starting out in the industry?
Community, I'll say that is where the heart is, honestly. There's so many times that I just wanted to not do the music anymore, or times when I could not get gigs. But there is always something that's happening in the community. Like, it doesn't have to be paying that much sometimes. But going there and meeting people, because you meet one person and this person will be like, oh, I have this producer who think that's going to like you. And then you just like get to connecting. And I would say conferences as well. They're so boring, but they are really, really worth it, because you get to meet people not that are not from your community, but they could know someone that could work with you, and you just get to learn a lot as well of like the help that you can get as a musician, like all about like help musicians and all the other websites that you can visit and all of that. That's where I'll start. Yeah.
No. So for me to get to this point, I think with the production, I learned initially from Ep.6 in London, and also from Saffron again. Before, they had a music production scheme where they give out Ableton Push studio headphones and like a Teenage Engineering little controller sampler thing, and some lessons. So that also opened up more doors to me as well, which I always closed off with like Ableton or like even getting the equipment for the push. And then that was just for Black women and non-binary people, so that was really good to find community there as well. And yeah, I think like, I also did a course in London called You Make It, It's like for under 30 women, Black and brown working class women based in like East London. So it's like very small demographic that I happen to fit in. And that was like I think it was like a 10-week maybe, or maybe, I can't remember how many weeks it was, of courses. And it was like having a lot of like guest speakers. It was on Zoom because it was in 2021, which was like guest speakers, workshops, like therapy, like cooking classes, yoga classes. And basically the whole thing was like how to, we used to joke about it. It was like, this course is just like how to think like a straight cis white man. And that really helped my my confidence improve as well. I think Nail was one of the speakers, and I think she didn't start release music until she was like 27, and at the time I was like 26. I was like, oh, it's not too late. And I think if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have gone back into starting to make music. I think for any young people, I think really keep an eye out for any opportunities like that, like short courses or training schemes, or even just like college if you're in Scotland and Scottish and based in Scotland, because college is free. And yeah, just try and meet people. Maybe not necessarily with the intentions of doing the thing. I think just like be in the spaces, and then you'll make friends, and then you will maybe find the right people.
Yeah. I like what you're saying there, even if like that specific thing doesn't lead to something else, but there could be one thing, like what you're saying, from having that from Neil, and like that have just being able to relate to one other person, or having someone else with a shared experience, but the thing that means you keep going. Yeah, do it. That's right.
Oh, another thing I forgot, like learning how to network from as soon as possible. I used to say that I hate it until this year, and I realized like, wow, it's a really good skill to have. Because some people will read like your application and all of that, but they have so much to do. And sometimes you get 1 minute to just talk to someone, you can make things happen. So it's a really good skill to have, even if you have anxiety. Carry your balls with you, like hold them, like things like that. Like it really, it all works out.
But also like networking isn't like, hi, I'm this person, what can you do? It's literally just like being yourself and being friendly and being nice to people. Like sometimes I've spoken to people, and because I'm a resident DJ for Pony Boy, and they've been like literally in the same room as me, like not talking to me, like around the same table, and then someone's like asked me something about the Pony Boy event, and they've been like, you DJ for Pony Boy, and it's like, you weren't talking to me until you knew that I maybe help you get a ticket for something. And it's like, I think you can learn something from literally anybody. Like it doesn't even have to be like music industry people or creative industry people. Like it doesn't even have to be anybody who even has any job. Do you know what I mean? Just have the same interest in talking to like every single person that you meet, and then when it does come to a point when you're at a conference or something, you can already talk to anyone, and from like an authentic place.
We've kind of spoken, I guess, what about individual maybe strategies and things of how we're progressing through it all, but what do you feel it needs to change at an industry level? So like, what accountability do venues, festivals, labels need to take? What would actually make a difference, do you feel?
The structure. I feel like if the structures stay the same, if this like the systems that run all of this, if they stay the same, it's gonna take a lot for it to change. It'll have to be like on a personal level for things to change. But if things change from the system, I do believe that more education and more more invitations for women to be in this kind of spaces from a very young age as well, because like we're taught to play with dolls and all of that, and like, you know, guys gets drum sets and all of that, and I'm like, how is that even like fair? Like things such as things should not be gendered anyway, but I get that, but I'm like, why is music being gendered? Why is like sitting on a computer and like pushing some buttons, why is that seen as like a man's job?
Yeah, I think more funding for projects and other organizations that are supporting training for women, non-binary people, and trans people to learn these skills for sure, because there are barriers to learning, which is making barriers to the industry, which is making the industry very not diverse at all, which is what's causing a lot of these problems that we've spoken about today. Things are getting better though, and there are a lot of things that are coming up new, and also like funding bodies, funding equipment more as well would be good, because sometimes like learning to DJ, the barrier is like not having a working laptop, or not having a laptop, or not having the decks or like headphones. So I think just having more people, and there's even with like music education as well in school, a lot of music budget for schools has been cut. So like I'm a recorded player, so they don't do like recorded lessons in schools anymore, that we were probably did them were like kids, and that does make a big difference as well, because like the early introduction to music is what would help so many people feel like comfortable in it, like moving forward. So I don't think it would be like a case of like, oh, need to sort things like at this level in industry. I think it actually starts like with children. Yeah,
completely agree. I think as well, just giving more funding to like grassroots venues as well. Like I'm from Edinburgh, we're all from Edinburgh, and it's heartbreaking the amount of venues that have been shut down in the last 5 years. But I don't know, it's just a real shame. And like you guys were saying, it's like having programs for young musicians, it's because that's where it starts. It is kind of like similar to like small grassroots venues. That's where the scene starts. It's like you don't just become a band and then headline the highest road. Do you know what I mean? It's like you start small, you then build your way up, gain that reputation and gain fan base and whatnot. But that's just going to stop if there's no grassroots venues or there's no funding for young people who are wanting to get into music. Yeah.
So before we finish, it's something we do in every episode. You've probably be from something you just said, Tifa. But I want to ask you all if you could recommend one tiny change, whether that's something for young women, something for the industry, or even something for yourselves. What would it be?
Well, I'd say on a personal level, believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And knowing that you can do it, because you are going to meet people that are going to tell you that you sound trash or you're not doing good enough or doesn't make sense. But if it makes sense to you, it's good enough. So, yeah. Well, what?
I say just be kind, like to yourself and to other people that you meet.
God, you're all so nice. I was going to say a tiny change should be that a sound engineer should get some lessons on how to be a good person. They should all go for a course of how to
be kind.
You know, be kind and respect people that aren't men. It sounds like I have loads of beef with sound engineers, because I do, but they're the ones that have really given me a hard time throughout my whole career. But to be a bit more positive, I think tiny change would be, a bit of advice I always give myself is just, you're the only person in control of what you're doing and what you're thinking and what you think about your art. So just remember that. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, and just as long as you're not offending anybody or upsetting anyone, it's just about, like what you guys said, like believing in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody else is gonna. I think it's one of the most important things. And don't let anybody else stop you from doing what you love.
Really, really thank you all so much for your honesty and your courage and your time, and for sharing your experiences today. It really, really, really means a lot. And to our listeners and viewers, especially young women listening who might be experiencing similar challenges, remember, you are not alone. So until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep making tiny changes that lead to something big.
If you've been affected by anything that came up in today's episode, you can find a list of resources for reaching out for help in the episode show notes, or you can check out Tiny Changes support page at tinychanges.com/support. Thank you to our great host, B. Charlotte. Music produced by the brilliant Barry Jackson. Podcast artwork by the amazing Berwin Muir. Technical production by the very talented Ross Sloan. This podcast was created and produced by Kayla Megan Burns and Nina Abisoria, for a Tiny Changes pilot production.